Hi there, my name is Kelly Cody Grimm.
And I'm Max Grimm.
And we are Creative Actors Lab. What we want to do is just talk a little bit about how you can bring creativity into your everyday life.
Well. So I have this running sort of smart aleck kind of remark to people, and they say, "Hey, Max, are you ready?" And I go, "No, but let's do it anyway." So here I am. Once again, welcome. The first episode of this podcast. This is called A River Between Chaos and Zen, and was the title of a blog that I was writing back when blogs were a thing, I guess around 2011 or 12. And I wrote a weekly blog. I did 52 of them. And the starting point of all of these was always poetry. And this is what I want to continue, because as I'm just looking at the world around me and everything, it's now late September in 2025. I am very soon to be 63 years old, and I am so grateful that I have the health and the family and the support system and the wherewithal to be here and do what I do. I'm very, very grateful for all of that. And just as I look around at the planet these days, there's a lot going on, and I'm not a political person. I am not a religious person, although I do hold some very deep spiritual values, but I'm not a religious person. And to me, as I look around, and the more I see my fellow human beings, the more I realize that poetry is very valuable. It's very important, and it's becoming more and more important as the days go by, because it is a starting point, and it enables people to speak about some very, very deep personal aspects of themselves or observations that they have made, and they're able to do so in ways that transcend our differences. And if there's anything I would say going on in the world right now that really breaks my heart, is just how divided we're becoming. That makes me sad. We're really, we don't have to agree with each other to be friends. That's what I believe. I will say, I just want to make one point. Probably my favorite line from a television show ever came from The X-Files. If y'all remember The X-Files, I was a massive fan of the show. But there was one episode where at the end of the show, Special Agent Dana Scully, who had been raised Catholic, had gone through this trauma and ordeal, and she was having this crisis of faith. So at the end of the episode, she goes into a church, and she goes into a confessional and is speaking to the Father. And I'm going to paraphrase wildly here, but she said, I work with a man who, if you start to speak to him about aliens or chupacabras or Bigfoot or Wicker Man or, alien abductions or any amount of other things, he has absolutely no reservation saying, yeah, that's possible. Yeah, that could happen. However, if you take the same person, if you take the same man, and you begin to speak to him about the possibility of a God or a supreme being or anything like that, it's immediately, no, that's impossible. And never forget, she looks at the final line of the show. She looked straight in the camera, and she said, God is speaking to us all the time, but we're forgetting how to listen. And that is honestly what I see so much of. There's so many people out there with so many great stories, and there's so many passionate voices. And we're forgetting how to listen. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. And I am not a scholar of poetry or anything. I barely got out of high school. But just as I have grown older, I've always loved poetry. My grandfather was a writer. I've written tons of poetry myself, and I just, the older I get, the more just come to realize this poetry is so important. And what I want to do with this, ultimately, is I want this podcast to be a place of understanding, a place of listening. You don't have to agree, and you can discuss. But I'm not here to change anybody's mind. I would just like to help us to start to facilitate an understanding, and maybe poetry is a starting off point because it is something that can speak to people on very different levels. I remember hearing some very, very smart person once say that it's poetry because when you read it or you have it, read to you, that you have a physical reaction to it. There's some kind of, you will, gasp, or you'll tear up, or you'll smile, or you'll have a warm feeling in your heart, or some big fucking anger that you just don't know how to express. And poetry can be a starting point. I don't claim to. I've written a lot of poetry, and I don't really claim to understand where it comes from. I just know I've had the feeling many times that I've just said, I'd be doing something like this, and it's like, Max, get your ass to a desk right now, get a pen and paper and start writing, and just shut up and write. And stuff has come out of me that I don't know where it's come from. And as somebody who has struggled a lot in a lot of ways, I honestly think if I could not be creative, particularly if I could not write poetry, I would be dead. I wouldn't want to live. But this is a place of understanding. This is, and for what I'm doing here, I'll just say this much. If I only reach one person out there, I hope any of this helps. I actually have a lot to say, but there'll be a time and a place for that later. I wanted to. I would like to read a lot of other people's poetry, and I'll read a couple of things, and I will just say a thing or two, just to kind of finish up and have. I wanted to. This is one of those poems. I wanted to share this. This is one of these poems that came to me. I don't know where it came from. It was kind of one of those, something grabbed me by the back of the neck and went, Max, go write this poem now. And I'd like to share this because it was a very automatic sort of writing. And it came from a place within me that I'm not really sure I fully understand. It goes like this. It's called A Passing of Vision. How blessed am I that you should pass through my vision, if only for a moment, in the speck of an hour on the back of my life. The continuing deluge, the fervent maelstrom, for an instant ceases, and we are frozen in mid-dance step on the edge of a roof in the midst of turbulent night. If I may bless you with my limited light, my soul will have grown by simply knowing your silence, assured by your smile across these miles of distance that two strangers know as a bridge, a blockade, a simmering smoke of a dream of past lives on gaslit roads, with horses and carriages that carried our lives that were too soon cut short by the boredom of time, forced us to separate our embrace that I promised would be eternal, but my aspirations towards eternity and cajolings of God fell short of my wishes and ruptured my dreams until now. Here you sit, with your hand on your face, and God, how I wish it were mine. Accept this, my love, a crippled gesture slicing the veil of eternity. The gaslights have burned dry and been replaced with the fires of electricity, while inside the hammers and stakes that oppress my vampire heart have long since broken clean at the shafts. For it is my love that erases this blackness. The trials by fire, threats of the weary, and crimes of the tortured could not distract from my feverish life that pours forth like sweat from my liquid soul. I keep you in mind in the depth of my sleep, and each time I die, the dance resumes as if it never had ended. While the roses I brought and the wine that you've chilled dance in crystalline stillness, and the angels wonder how a love such as this could be so divine. This is another poem. I wrote this probably in about 1998. Again, I did not know where this came from. But if you sort of look at the world we live in now and this events of recent history, this poem came back to me and it just seemed appropriate. It's again, I wrote this in about 1998, and here I am reading it in 2025. It's called The Snake. Independent vermin snacking on smoked sturgeon got caught lying in the courtroom because they never heard the real version. Goldilocks and her grandma on the stand for murder got christened with a hammer, then the judge called a holiday. In the courtroom, much distressed, time had come to take the test, so I lifted up her dress to expose her curly flintlocks. But the geometry of her cemetery was, to say the least, contrary to the expectations of many and disappointment of quite a few. The Garden of Eden had been eaten, and the snake was within speaking. The masses were hastily retreating because the carnival was dead. Insane minds formed a posse, nailed Jesus to the crossy, buffed and shined their lacquered vernacular, and discussed it over coffee. Righteous wimps on sinking ships stormed the courtroom with effluvium. Stop this noise and give us our toys. We'll create a more perfect union. Screaming turned to crying, rhetoric turned to whining, the insipid started lying, and the failed kept on trying. Squelch this nonsense, cried the snake. This crap is more than I can take. This snowballing virus was never my intention when I perpetrated the insurrection. Please have mercy on my ears. Displace, I plead, my darkest fears. Before the storm sirens begin to wail, before I swallow my own tail. Stop, please, stop, he squealed in beseeching tone. Have mercy on this earth and leave my mother alone. I just want to say one or two more little things here. A lot of the poetry, for the time being, that I'll read will either be my own or poetry out of the public domain, of which, by the way, a whole bunch of stuff became public domain writing, and there's a bunch of stuff I really grew to love. Would like to be reading William Butler Yeats. I love William Butler Yeats. Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Shakespeare, which has been public domain for a really long time, but there's just so many poems and there's so many great poets that have become available, and I would like to share them. Now, that being said, as we go along here, if you guys have any sort of poetry you would like to share in any way, shape, or form, I really wish you would. There will be some sort of contact information here as soon as I figure out all this internet-y technical, shit that you kids are so good at these days. But, I'm old, so it takes me a minute. So, but I would like to furthermore have guests here. Again, how all that would work out, I'm not entirely sure, but I want to give a place for more voices than just mine. And I do think poetry is the starting point for this. And if I really want to sit here and dream for a second, where I would ultimately like to see this go is there was a show that was on, I'm not sure, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I'm not entirely sure, but it was called Russell Simmons Deaf Poetry Jam. And it was basically an open mic to anyone. And that's the sort of thing I love, that this is not a competition. This if I spent a lot of years being a theater actor, and we would get into things like theater sports and poetry slams and things of that nature. And you don't like them either, do you? And that's well and fine for what people want to do, if that's what they want to do. But to be perfectly honest with you, this is not. It was not my thing. Was never my thing. And this is a space of support, of cooperation, not competition. Competition can be can be a healthy thing, but unfortunately, most of the time now it just isn't. And I just want to support my fellow writers, my fellow poets, my fellow people who have something to say for themselves. I want to hear from you, and I will want to give everyone a voice. This is Rumi, named after the poet. You want to say something? Okay, apparently so. In closing, for now, I think there are a lot of subjects out there that really need to be spoken about. Mental health being one of them. Compassion for our fellow human beings is another. There's a lot of things I really feel that need to be discussed, and we human beings, if we're going to evolve, we better start understanding them, and we better start listening. I want to share something. I want to share this poem. It's called the Desiderata. It was written by Max Ehrmann in 1927. It's called the Desiderata, and it's reading this off of allpoetry.com. Desiderata are technically things necessary or highly desirable, or something lacking and wanted. This poem is a list of things desirable in life. And I want to say, I first heard this poem when I was about 8 years old. This would have been 1969, 1970. When I first heard this. And this is a story for another time. However, there was a lot going on in the world and in my own little corner of the world at the time. I was 8 years old. I was really scared for my life, for my family's life, for the world. I remember at this 8 years old at being, I don't think I've ever been more scared in my life than I was when I was 8 years old. And this is a song, if you'll remember, those of you old enough, this is the song that went, "You're a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here." And I remember the first time I ever heard this poem, and it gave me a reason to live. And there's been points in my life, it's helped me to carry on. I wanted to share this. Come here. Come here. Come here. Go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly and listen to others, even the dull and the ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexations to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain and bitter. For always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your career, however humble it is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself. Especially do not feign affection. Neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly to the counsel of years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune, but do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here, and whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be. And whatever your labors and aspirations, in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace with your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful. Strive to be happy. That poem saved my life. Until next time. Peace.
We appreciate you guys tuning in, and keep in mind that you can catch us on our social media, Creative Actors Lab on Instagram and Facebook, and by the same name on YouTube. And for more on what we do, you can go to our website,
CreativeActorsLab.com, all one word. Thank you for listening. Stay curious, make art.org. Much love until next time.